Scroll absolutely dominated the lobby. They are the best team in the world. Vico and Malabuka, I did think they'd do better in this tournament. We have got so much to talk about today. We had the first Divisional Cup of Chapter 7, which was won by Sky and Scroll, who are probably the most informed team in the world right now. We've also got a ton of new duos. Queasy has a new teammate, Vanya has a new teammate. I'm going to get into all of that in this video. So let's start by talking about the Divisional Cup. Now, big tournaments are officially back. The off-season is over. We had the Reload Elite Series qualifiers on Saturday, and yesterday we of course had the Divisional Cup, which was won by Sky and Scroll, who are just doing so incredibly well at the moment. I mean, since they won the Unreal Cup back in the end of December, they have gone from strength to strength. They qualified for the Reload Elite Series, finishing second in the first qualifier. They won this Divisional Cup. Scroll won the solo series. It's just been insane, and like, they are a great duo. I think everyone always knew that. Their chemistry is brilliant. They have great cohesion in endgame. But even I didn't think that they would be like the best duo in the world, which is what they are. I don't think you can even dispute that right now. On form, over the last month or two, they are the best team in the world. I do genuinely believe that if we had a duo FNCS tomorrow, Sky and Scroll would win. And all the evidence is there for this. In the Divisional Cup, they had the highest average eliminations and the highest average placement. I mean, they were just on a different level to everyone else in that lobby. And looking at the individual stats, Scroll absolutely dominated the lobby, coming first for damage, eliminations, assists, damage ratio, and net damage. Just ridiculous stuff. I actually didn't even predict them to win though, which is a funny story. I put them in 7th because I thought they would be contested at the north side of Battlewood Boulevard by Ricky and Zangi. Ricky and Zangi ended up actually dropping on Prism and Casper on the south side of Battlewood. Prism and Casper, a team that can't catch a break at the moment. They also got contested in the Reload Elite Series qualifier, which meant they came 18th in that. Unfortunate for them, but it was fortunate for Sky and Scroll because they weren't too interrupted. They could play their game and it allowed them to get the win. In terms of how they played the tournament, they were excellent. They actually won the first game. Sky then hit an incredible solo clutch in game 3, securing 72 points as a solo, which was just ridiculous. Managing to get a 3rd place finish by himself, ridiculous stuff. They then got 2 back-to-back second places in games 5 and 6 to secure the win by a huge margin, winning by 84 points. I can't praise this duo enough at the moment. Their performances have been so good. And yes, FNCS is a few months away, but I don't see any reason why they can't continue these level of performances. I think this is their level. I don't think this is just a purple patch. Yes, they are in incredible form, but I feel like this is their level. They are a tier 1 duo, and I don't think they're going to massively slow down in the next few months. But once more, big credit to Sky and Scroll. Now, let's run through the rest of the leaderboard. In 2nd place, we had Shark and Teeny. Now, I did actually pick these guys to win in my predictions. I'll run through my full list of the top 10 predictions in a moment. But Shark and Teeny did play this tournament very well. Unfortunately, Sky and Scroll were just on a different level, so they were never really going to get close to them. They did have a little bit of bad luck. Teeny crashed in game 1, but ultimately they just couldn't do enough on the day. They did come first in the Esports World Cup qualifier on Saturday, whilst Sky and Scroll came second in that. And yesterday we saw the position switch. Still a great performance from Shark and Teeny though. I maintain what I said in my last video, that Shark has reached the end of his current chapter and he is now ready to be considered as a tier 1 pro. And by the way, I've viewed him as a tier 1 pro for quite a while now, and I feel like a lot of you guys watching will probably agree with that, but now the community can unanimously perceive him as a tier 1 pro. In 3rd place we had Cringe and Volko. These guys had an uncontested spot in the mid map and they really made that work to their advantage. Obviously with the new net damage surge, landing mid map is a big advantage. Interestingly though, we didn't have a single zone end up in the middle of the map. They all kind of went to the edges, so maybe it's not as big as an advantage as one might expect, but listen, irrespective, Cringe and Volko, a great performance and a 3rd place for them. In 4th and 5th, we have the 2 teams that landed at Lethal Labs, which were Swizzy and Pixie, and Skyjump and Dew. Now, I didn't include either of these guys in my predictions because I thought they'd be fighting off spawn every game, and this didn't end up happening. I mean, there is a lot of loot at that POI, so it makes sense why they would split it, and that's exactly what happened. And both of them honestly could have done even better. I mean, Swizzy and Pixie, just a couple of moments where had they made it count, they probably could have broken into the top 3. Skyjump and Dew got unlucky. They did come 5th, but they did miss game 5, only playing 5 games, so kind of makes sense as to why they didn't get higher, but that's still a really, really good placement. In 6th place, we had Tiddy and Uppel, another uncontested team landing at the north of the map. Credit to them. 7th, we had Cami and Hari. Now, despite the fact that these guys were contested by iDrop and Marius at Bumpy Bay, I did actually include them in my predictions. I put them to come 10th, and they did better than that, managing this 7th place. They were definitely the better team off spawn. They only actually died once in the fight. The rest of the games they did make it to the end game and looked pretty decent. Honestly, all things considered, 7th is solid. Maybe the fact that they had 5 games to play out, you would have expected them to finish higher, but it's still a decent score. In 8th place, we had another interesting team, which was Calais Junior and Phantom. Now, obviously, Calais Jr. is a controversial pro in EU. Some people have accused him of cheating. He did get to the finals of the Divisional Cup a couple of months back, and then he was disqualified before the finals, but never officially banned. So there's definitely a lot of confusion around his situation. It does seem like perhaps he is a legitimate player, though. I mean, there's been no kind of accusations, no action taken towards him since then. And he put in a great performance yesterday. Calais Jr. and Phantom, who obviously was the Middle East player who now plays in EU, they beat King Cringe and Velo 5-1 off spawn. Looks very good, and honestly they didn't have a lot of loot either, so 8th place is pretty solid from them. For Velo and King Cringe, it wasn't a great tournament. Losing 5-1 is never ideal. I'll speak about them a little bit more later in the video. Just to round out the leaderboard, in 9th place we had Cheatin and Yanis, and in 10th place we had Ping and Kiro. I want to go over some of the big teams that finished outside of the top 10. We had Dharm and Demus in 13th. I did think these guys would finish in the top 3. Just wasn't their day, unfortunately, from uncontested Clawsey Lodge. In 18th place we had Chap and Flixie. Now these guys were contested over at Classified Canyon by Mumsy and Sato, so it makes sense as to why they finished 18th. They did actually manage to win a game, fair play to them. One team that I did expect to finish higher was Vico and Malabuka. They could only manage a 19th, landing at the mountain north of Wonky Land. I did think they'd do better. I thought they would bounce back from their disappointing performance in the Esports World Cup qualifiers, where they came 14th out of 20 teams and were in last place after the first 4 games. Just didn't quite get going in that tournament. I know there was the situation surrounding lots of players landing at Slurpy Swamp, and the off spawn was a little bit of a grief fest, but even so, Vico and Malabuka is a quality team. I did think they'd do better in this tournament, but these guys are obviously very good. They're a great fit for each other. I have no concerns about them, and just because they've had 2 not ideal performances this weekend, it doesn't really change how I feel about them as a duo. I do still feel like they are one of the teams that could be a contender to win the first FNCS of the chapter. Pink and Haris came in 42nd. They landed at Sus Studios, but they could only make it off spawn twice. They were contested by Gordetti and Nako, the Spanish duo. And in 46th place we had another big team that was contested, and that was Chino and Pablo Wingu. Now these guys landed at Sandy Strip. They were contested by Finchik and Cantry. Honestly, I thought they were going to split this because there's so much loot there. I didn't think this would be a problem, but no, they did fight every game. As such, Chino and Pablo only made it off spawn in 3 of the 6 games, and they couldn't really do anything in those matches, so 46th place is all they managed. But I'm sure those guys won't mind too much. I mean, they did qualify for the Esports World Cup on Saturday, finishing 3rd in that qualifier, so they've had a good weekend regardless. Now, before I talk about the huge new duos on EU, I do quickly want to go over my predictions for the Divisional Cup. As you can see, I had Shark and Teeny to win, and they only managed a 2nd. The next 4 teams that I had all were misses: Vico Malabuka, Dharm Demus, Chino Pablo, and Darkos and Minori, none of them managing to get inside the top 10. I then had Cheatin and Yanis in 6th, and they finished pretty close by in 9th. Sky and Scroll I had in 7th, and as I already mentioned, that's because I thought they would be contested. Had I known that they would be uncon, then obviously they would have gone a lot higher. Ping and Kiro I put for 8th, they came 10th, pretty close on that one. Cringe and Volko I had 9th, and they did better than that, coming in 3rd. And Cami and Hari, I was only 3 places off. Overall, not my worst predictions, but definitely not my best either. Now, I do want to quickly talk about the NA Central Divisional Cup. I don't often do this as this is the EU review, and I always like to focus on European Fortnite, but yesterday, the finish we had on NA was so good that I can't not talk about it. It was just ridiculously good. We had Clicks and Higgs versus Ritual and Ages in the game 6 to see who would win. Clicks got W keyed by Peterbot in the last game, which was just insane. Clicks was very unhappy about that on stream afterwards, saying that he felt like he was getting targeted, and he felt like it was honestly quite weird from Peterbot that he would go out of his way to stop him from winning a tournament, which I mean, you can kind of understand where Clix is coming from there. Unfortunately, Clix and Higgs not able to win the tournament because Ritual and Aegis did, and that's because Aegis hit probably the most Deus Ex Machina clutch I've ever seen. Everything just fell in his favour. It was like he was out of the game. He was on 36 HP in a cone, and then all of a sudden a Flowberry Mist falls on him. He goes for a shot and Kingaling falls into the shot and he kills him, and then that gives him enough points to win. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But yeah, what a finish that was. Always good to see NA tournaments. Obviously it was on earlier because of the Super Bowl, so I had a good chance to watch it and it was good fun. In terms of EU teams on that tournament, we didn't have any real high finishes, the highest placing one being Akira and Karama, who came in 29th place. Right, I've made you guys wait long enough. Now let's go over all the big new duos on the EU. The main one being that Queasy and Moustache is now officially a team. I predicted this ages ago. I'll put the clip up for you now. I think they'll have fun playing with each other now, but come FNCS in 2026, you can expect to see them playing with different players. I think there's a lot of potential for Queasy to play with Moustache if Moustache drops Tayson. Honestly, it always felt like this was going to be a possibility, with Queasy kind of failing with a lot of his previous duos. It didn't work out with Veno or with Fredoxy, and now it hasn't quite worked out with Rax, even though I did feel like they had a lot of potential and honestly probably would have been really good had they stuck. And then you've got Vanya and Moustache, who again just really couldn't click, really have been pretty poor over the past few months, and you can attribute that to maybe Moustache not being that locked into the game. But whatever the reason, you've got two top quality players who should be doing better. So I think that split makes a lot of sense. Queasy and Moustache, I mean, these are guys who did great with each other last year, so I'm sure they can replicate that in 2026. Now, to talk about Vanya's new duo mate, we had it announced yesterday that he will be playing in 2026 with Wox. This isn't quite what I expected. Honestly, I think most people would have said that he'd play with either Swizzy or Pixie. Now, obviously, Swizzy and Pixie are currently playing with each other. Neither one of them chose to snake the other to play with Vanya. It does look like they're going to stick, so Vanya had to look elsewhere for options. And honestly, of all the players on the market, I do feel like Wox is one of the better options. He was previously locked in with Tayson for the whole year, but that has fallen apart, obviously. I mean, Vanya and Wox is pretty solid. Vanya, a very good leader, someone who is capable of fighting. Wox, someone who can literally just focus on the fragging and follow Vanya. It's a good dynamic, it should work. I'm interested to see if it lasts. I do wonder if maybe if a slightly better option came up for Vanya that he would take it. All it takes is a couple of bad performances from Swizzy and Pixie and maybe Vanya has a new option. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, that is the new duo. One thing that is interesting about these two new teams is their drop spots. We know that Vanya has been landing at Latte Landing for this whole season, and I don't see any reason why that's going to change. Queasy and Moustache have officially also confirmed that they will be landing at Latte Landing, so we might see a spawn fight between the two teams. That could be very interesting. So where does this leave the other players? Well, Rax is currently looking for a duo. By the time this video comes out, we'll be close to the next Divisional Cup, so you may be able to see who he's playing with already, but as of right now, we don't currently know. I think the option that makes the most sense for Rax is if he goes back and plays with Seti, who he was obviously with before he played with Queasy, and they were doing really well together. It's a pretty similar dynamic. Rax can just frag out whilst Seti leads. I think that would make a lot of sense. Now, that all depends on whether Seti is willing to take him back, but I think if Seti wants to do well this year, that's something he's going to have to do. If Seti doesn't take Rax back, then he may stay with Nebs. There's also rumours he's going to be playing with Dinas. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. Stay tuned for my next video where we will have had the next Divisional Cup opens. We will have seen all the new duos and I'll break down all of them for you in depth. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that. Before I go over some other news, including new duo updates and some org signings, I do want to quickly talk about the Eval Cup that we had on Thursday. I'll keep it brief because obviously this was a few days ago now. We had 4 teams win games. Vexy and Snozq won game 1, the Polish duo. These guys have looked really good lately. They've been in great form. I will say that they did come in 20th place in the Reload Elite Series Qualifier 1, which isn't ideal, but the fact that they even made that qualifier in the first place shows that they have something about them, clearly looking good at the moment. Game 2 was won by Swizzy and Pixie. Game 3 was won by Robin and Ankido, 2 players that have been quite quiet lately, but they did get a win in this tournament. And Game 4 was won by Finchik and Cantry. Over on NA Central, we had 2 of the 4 games to be won by EU teams. They were Scroozy and Battercry and King Cringe and Twy. Now, the fact that King Cringe and Twy are doing so well on NA Central almost makes me wonder if that could end up as a real duo in EU. Currently we have King Cringe and Velo and Eclipse and Twy, and there's various reasons why they might not split. King Cringe and Velo have looked great over the last few months. They've made so much money, constantly winning in the Victory Cups, whilst Eclipse and Twy are obviously brothers, so it might not be easy as just splitting for them. The main reason why these duos could split is because King Cringe and Velo do argue a lot. Their vibes are often pretty poor whenever you tune into them. But my take on that is that's kind of part of their game. You can't really take that away from them because that's just their nature. I think they are just quite kind of argumentative, but they are also brilliant players. And I think as they develop as teammates, as they improve their skills, they'll grow out of that. And all that will be left is the talent and the hard work, and they'll be a good duo. So listen, could I see King Cringe and Twy being a real duo? Yes, I could, because they are playing well together. But just because King Cringe and Velo argue sometimes, it doesn't mean they're not going to stick together. Now, another team that did well in this tournament was the newly formed duo of Pridage and Gonzo. They managed 2 second places throughout the tournament. Honestly, I feel like Pridage is like the best player in the world at getting in second place. He's great at choosing the right layers, he always plays out his materials well, but he just can't quite convert those second places into victory royales. And I feel like as soon as he learns to do that consistently, then we will have a real team on our hands. I did tweet saying that maybe Gonzo could be the missing piece of the puzzle. He is a very good up and coming young player, very bright, clearly got bags of potential. Could this duo be one that could develop over the next few months? In terms of other interesting teams that we saw in this tournament, we had Rax and Darky play together. This was just a last minute duo though. I don't think Rax is going to play with Darky permanently. We had Seti play with Dinas. This seemed like more of a tryout, so maybe it could be permanent, but again, I just feel like Seti and Rax make so much sense, and I'd be surprised if it didn't happen. We had Veno play with Nebs. This was just a fill. Obviously, Veno is going to NA Central very soon, so he is just playing with random teammates each week. And Queasy did not play with anyone because he was away on a skiing holiday. Now, let's get into some other news. We do now know that Focus is going to be on 0 ping for the foreseeable future. He has moved for it. Obviously, he's been doing quite well with Thomas HD anyway. Perhaps this will take his game to the next level. Let's get into some org signings. The biggest one being the big signing. Big have officially signed Malabuka. That means they have the full duo of Vico and Malabuka. I mean, this is pretty exciting for them. The one thing I do want to point out though is, where does this leave Shark? Obviously, Shark is going to be in big demand now, having qualified for the Esports World Cup early with Teeny. I do wonder if there's a world in which they let him go now, especially now that they have a full tier 1 duo signed. I do wonder if we could see Shark signed to a new organisation potentially. Other signings include Moneymaker going to XP42, where his friend Rezex is already signed. We've had Frostroki join Focus, and Tiddy and Seren have both joined Vulcan. We've got a bunch of other players looking for duos. Darky needs a teammate, as does Gabix, as does Waze, as does Alba, the best female player in the world. She's been playing a lot with Alvanir lately. I don't know if she's just searching for a duo for a one-off tournament or if they have split. We'll have to wait and see on that one. One duo that have definitely split is Cade and Zynox. Honestly, these guys were doing pretty okay together, but for whatever reason they have called it quits, and they are both looking for teammates. I do think they could both have some success, but as I say, by the time this video is out, we'll be close to the next Divisional Cup and we'll be able to see all the new duos in action, and in my next video I'll analyse all of them for you. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that. And finally, I want to talk about the Tadido Coed Cup that was organised by Tadido that we had on Friday. This ended up being won by Treasure Meow, Twyla and Casper, who I obviously mentioned earlier in the video, having a little bit more luck in these Coed events as compared to the Reload Elite Series and the Divisional Cup. Credit to them for winning. It was 3 games on EU, 2 games on NA, and it was all builds. In my opinion, that is how Coed should be. Always builds. I like the split region idea too. A really cool tournament, and I hope we can see more stuff like that in the future. Anyway, that is going to do it for this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed, as I make these kind of videos every few days to keep you guys up to date on everything that happens in the EU. If you want to support me any further, then using code SPODSON in the Fortnite item shop is a brilliant way to do that. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.